which thing we launched day one without pre-sale or anything.
So seriously, where did this money come from?
Counter-Strike skins have even surpassed Bitcoin.
So it turns out that the game is live.
The game now consumes so much energy that even Elon Musk said that at this rate, next year, we simply won't have enough electricity in the world. It's not just $1 million that you need to take and simply burn. And for him, the connection will basically be free while we'll start generating commission and EVU from all these transactions.
Now I have a question. How does this relate to EvoSim? Hello, dear friends. My name is Nicola Tok. I am currently in Dubai at the office of EvoSim, a major international telecom provider. And today on my podcast, I have Alexey Didichenko as a guest. He is the CEO of EvoSim and the author, visionary, and in particular, the implementer of EvoSim Game that, in my opinion, could spark a revolution. But today we're going to dive into this together. If you're interested in gamification, cryptocurrencies, and new, unique, and exciting projects, then be sure to watch this podcast until the end. And now I'd like to ask Alexey to tell us a little about himself. How long have you been in Dubai and how deeply are you involved in the world of games? What brought you to this market? What do you see in it? And maybe share a bit of your background, just so the audience can understand a little about where you came from and later where you're headed.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Kolya, for organizing such a wonderful and interesting podcast. Yes, my name is Alexey and I've been living in Dubai for 5 years now. I am an entrepreneur. I have several interesting areas in which I'm developing. Some of them are related to the crypto industry, some to the fintech industry, some to media buying, and so on. As for crypto, if I'm being honest and objective, my very first encounter was probably in 2016. And yes, my first real experience with both the rise and the fall was in 2017 and 2018, just like everyone else. After that, there was a series of my own entrepreneurial moves, attempts to find interesting ideas and hypotheses. And for the past 3 years or so, you could say I've been actively involved specifically in social gaming and media buying. And in crypto, we already have a successful product together with our partners. We have a platform where users compete with each other in real time by predicting the price of Bitcoin, essentially, prediction games. And 3 years ago, we started this product also in Dubai. And within the first 3 months, we became one of the top 3 smart contracts on the Polygon platform, smart contracts on the Polygon blockchain. Our smart contract handled the top 3 number of transactions. And since then, I really started to focus on social gaming. I like the format of games, gamification. I enjoy the fact that users have fun. And besides fun, there's also a certain thrill. They can experience some pleasant emotions. And in general, the whole topic of gamification, I believe it's a key trend that opens up large volumes of traffic and allows you to keep users more engaged than with the classic approach to attracting a player or, say, a client. And for the past 6 months or so, I have also been the CEO of a company called EvoSim. For me and my team, this product is, you could say, new in terms of fintech. We started developing various products over a year ago because fintech is a field that's like a blue ocean. Crypto is all great. There's money here, but I don't know of any other markets as volatile in terms of trends as crypto. You start building a product, focus on one topic, and by the time you've made an MVP, 3 or 4 months later, the trend is gone. So you end up launching a product that you've invested a lot in, but nobody needs it anymore.
And the trend is gone.
Yes, of course. You can catch trends. You can ride that wave. You can even create your own trends, which is much harder. So you can make money here. But besides crypto, our team has long been considering moving into the fintech space. Because unlike crypto, in fintech, you're actually solving a real pain point for people and earning money for it. And that's how the idea to create some SaaS solutions came about. And in fact, in October, some guys approached me and my team with a fintech product that was already developed, had traction and a history, and was up for sale because the management and leadership of the previous company weren't really handling things well. A lot of money had been invested in the project, but it wasn't generating much interest for investors. So we discussed it with the team and decided, great, let's do it. After all, we had sent out the signal that we wanted a fintech product.
And here it is, right? Could you please tell us about the product itself? What is EvoSim in simple terms?
EvoSim is very simple. It's a fintech platform. It's a kind of fintech startup. We have an app in the Apple Store and on Google. A person downloads the app and they can purchase an available internet plan in 190 countries around the world. It's all very simple. In just 2 clicks, you download the app from the App Store or Google, install it, register without KYC or anything else, choose the plan you're interested in, pay with Apple Pay, Google Pay, crypto or a card, and install the eSIM on your own phone. So basically, we are a kind of roaming telecom and fintech operator that provides users with internet access through eSIM technology.
So this is internet without a physical card that you have to insert into your phone.
Yes, well,
That's very convenient.
Yes, there are physical SIM cards, which are very convenient, but you can often lose them if you swap them out, especially if you travel and you rely on a single phone number and so on. But with an eSIM, your main phone number is installed, which you don't have to change. And you can simply activate the plan that interests you. In fact, for me, this was the main factor in deciding to buy from this company because it really solved my personal problem. As I mentioned earlier, I've been living in Dubai for 5 years now, and I've had my phone number for many, many, many years. And because I've gotten so used to this phone number and a large circle of acquaintances knows that this is my number, plus there are certain things tied to it like bank codes and so on.
Well, of course, that's actually a pain point for everyone.
Taking out and changing SIM cards every time, that's just not for me. So I always use roaming basically. Roaming in CIS countries isn't particularly expensive for as well. It's expensive compared to regular service if you just buy a local SIM when you arrive. But it's tolerable compared to Europe or America. It's manageable. All my life, whenever I was in Dubai, traveling frequently or had business activities, I always just used roaming simply because it was more comfortable. And I had always heard before that there are eSIMs and SIM cards. But, until you have someone in your circle who actually does it in practice,
it's just background information.
Either you're too lazy to figure it out yourself or you just don't get a concrete solution. Here you go, 1, 2, 3, install. That's it. And here it kind of came up as a business proposal. I tried the product myself and it solved my problem. Honestly, I think there are a few products that have really boosted my life. AI is one of them, and it's something I don't mind. Yeah, I don't mind paying for. I'm actually willing to pay more for subscriptions. Agreed. And basically, one of those products is the eSIM technology. The first time I tried it, I was like, wow, it was actually so simple. So many times I struggled and ended up paying for roaming just because I was too lazy to go to some service center, to some operator in a foreign country to buy a SIM card. And often you constantly have to go through verification processes. Not every country passport, IMEI, poking your phone with a PIN. That's the whole story. Then you end up storing all these SIM cards. And if you lose one, and if you're not in that country, trying to reactivate it is just a nightmare, a total disaster. Exactly. And it's just not worth the money. And when I tried it and saw how much the fintech eSIM product solves this pain point, I realized, wow, there's serious money to be made here. And then came the market research. I saw that the niche is growing rapidly. The market is growing by 10 to 12% a year. It's a multi-billion-dollar market with major competitors valued at hundreds of millions of dollars. There are companies, cases that have been sold for billions of dollars to larger telecom operators. In other words, it's a blue ocean where you're really building a product not based on trends that will change in 3 months, but you're creating something that's always needed connectivity. And eSIM, so to speak, is only continuing to grow and develop, and more fintech products and telecom operators themselves will be offering more eSIM technologies. In particular, phones are moving into the era of post-physical cards. And I believe that in the very near future, we won't have any physical SIM cards or new phones with them at all.
I want to share a bit of my own experience. I've also heard about eSIM technology for many years, but until I got to know his family, I had never used it. So it's amazing how your story is actually my story too. I mean, I had a problem. It was solved right here, but I didn't know how. And now I already know that I can install up to 8 eSIMs on my phone. I'm already using eSIM while traveling around the world, Indonesia, Bali, Thailand, Phuket. When I flew to Dubai, I literally did it on the plane in 3 minutes. Just like you said, I paid with Google Pay. I walk out and I have internet right away. No need to worry about anything.
So there are way more advantages compared to a regular SIM card. First of all, besides being much cheaper than buying a local SIM card, another big advantage is that when you move around the city, the eSIM operator gives you access to all available towers. How does an eSIM operator actually work? If you break it down, there's a kind of roadmap, or you could say the architecture of this business. There is telecom infrastructure, which belongs to large conglomerates. They either have their own operators or they sell
Traffic.
Basically. They lease out their hardware to other smaller telecom operators. And that's how in every country, 2, 3, 4, 5 telecom operators are created who compete for the local market. They have their own telecom towers, either owned outright or leased from major companies. And then there are roaming operators. There are also operators who sign contracts all over the world with local telecom operators, buy up their excess traffic and resell it to their own users. And these roaming operators, like us at eSIM, in fact, in each country, we can have 2, 3, or even 4 operators under contract or as partners. And this means that if you move around the city and one tower has a weak signal, it automatically switches to another tower. Unlike your local operator, which will always use only its own towers, and it often happens that this operator doesn't have coverage in a certain region, maybe somewhere in the forest or in the mountains, but another one does. And, some people in those mountainous areas, they also,
Yeah, that's cool. I just got an association. Like you always driving the same car, but here you can switch.
Right.
Sometimes Lexus rolls.
Well, we had an interesting case recently when there was a blackout in Europe, in Spain.
Yeah.
Everything went down. There was no connection at all. And one of our users shared some feedback saying, man, you guys really saved my day. The local operators weren't working, but the SIM card, even if just barely, still worked. But there was a connection. There was internet. So that was pretty cool. Because some of the cell towers were still up and running, probably thanks to some kind of autonomous power systems. And he was able to connect to those towers. And the second advantage is that it's a roaming operator. And since I live in the Emirates, there are restrictions on calls here.
WhatsApp, Telegram.
WhatsApp, Telegram, yes, through mobile telephony. And there are a lot of expats here who have come and live here, but they're not locals, right? And their lives are connected to the rest of the world. So they need some way to call and communicate. And they only have either voice calls or there's a local operator, a local messenger that people can install and you can make calls through it. But it's not very popular worldwide. I mean, it's not really recognized globally.
Yeah, that's a barrier.
Yes. And the fact that there's a firewall, it doesn't let you bypass these call restrictions. People use VPNs, but with VPNs, the quality is constantly
poor connection, low speed quality.
And roaming is it's considered as if you're a tourist, so they can't restrict you as a roaming user. And because it's a roaming operator,
that's cool.
At the rates of local operators, I can call without any problems. And this kind of solves my second problem, the fact that I live in Dubai and I often need to call other countries. And in those countries where connections can actually be blocked, these kinds of operators work better than VPNs.
Super. Let me sum it up for myself. Look, there's a product mobile internet that 99% of the people around us use every day, even more often than water.
Well, probably everyone uses it, at least those who are involved with the development of modern technologies.
I said 99, so I wouldn't say 100. That's so people don't throw tomatoes at me. There's always someone, walking around with a pipe.
I'm in forest.
Yeah, and dialing with one of those rotary dials, This product is used by every person many times a day, every day. That's the first point. Second, it solves the pain of traveling around the world and getting quality internet without, all that hassle.
Everyone got it?
Yeah, everyone got it. Cool. Super. I like it. I agree. Now I understand why you looked in that direction. I've encountered this myself too. It really is a great product, definitely in demand, definitely on the rise. Now let's talk a little about the game. So how did you come up with the idea for the game and how is it all connected to the mobile provider? Well, to start with, just in broad strokes, and then we'll get into the details.
All right, let's start with this. This isn't my first business where I use gamification and I'm involved with games in general, show games, you could say. And secondly, once again, if you remember, we bought this company and EvosimGame had certain mechanics they were working with through gamification, but they weren't able to implement them successfully. And since I have experience and an understanding of the market, we put together our own concept from scratch. And why did we come to her? Because if we take a fintech product, a classic fintech product, how does it develop? Basically, your main task is to attract users, right? You have your CPA, cost per acquisition, let's put it simply, the cost of acquiring a user. And you have the amount of money a user can bring you over a certain period of time.
Lifetime value, right?
Yes. In this business, there's a certain conversion rate and a certain retention rate, meaning how long a person can stay with you. And if we look at the classic development of fintech, it only works one way, when you pour in a lot of money. So basically it's all about traffic, right? Well, attracting users, investing in marketing, you need to pour in a lot of money. You keep pouring in. For what purpose? What? Because you'll be generating revenue, income, and you keep reinvesting it. At some point, you reach break even when you stop investing your own funds. And then from there, the company starts to grow and it begins to move into profitable delta. And after a few years, you reach some kind of profit, net profit. But in particular, everyone aims not so much for profit, but for the company's capitalization. That's how the venture business is built. And in general, the fintech industry, and to get there, well, it's not just a single $1 million that you need to take, burn, and see what happens.
In the red ocean of competition.
Yes. And so we decided we have, let's say, classic sources for attracting traffic. We target people specifically, for example, in Dubai. Anyone who arrives can see our ad, the creative, the hook like, stop spending on roaming or buying local SIM cards. Here's CMD SIM, buy it in 2 clicks and stay connected. So we specifically target people who need connectivity right at the moment. But there's a certain problem with all of these. People who use mobile service while traveling don't travel 365 days a year, they travel less. And sometimes it happens that someone arrives, they see the ad, and we spend money to attract them. They use the service, generate some revenue for us, then go back to their country and don't travel anywhere for another 6 months. So they're not using it. And what's more, they forget about you. Maybe they'll remember again when they need it, when the need arises. But most likely the repeat cycle doesn't happen that quickly. So in this business, it's more about volume. So if you have volume, then you can look at retention, conversion. How many people? You mean repeat purchases, right? Yes, people come back and buy monthly. Naturally, if you only have 100 users, it could happen that none of them come back for 6 months. But if you have 100,000, then you have some conversion rate, unique users who are currently abroad, they need roaming and they buy from you. And to boost, to attract that many people, you have to spend a lot of money. And that's what we doing. We testing the market, checking conversions, making sure the traffic is coming in. We have the top 5 geographies in the world in terms of telecom purchases. The first place is the Middle East, specifically the Arab country, the Emirates. Next, second place is America. Third place is Europe. And fourth place is Southeast Asia in terms of purchases. And fifth is other countries. So naturally, you have to target different geographies. If you also want to cover all geographies, that's just astronomical money. And without attracting investments, venture capital, or solid funding, it's impossible to reach that scale. You can be a local player, for example. You could focus on the Middle East, say on the Emirates. There are people who come here purely to capture this market, but the scale up isn't fast, the scale isn't large, and you won't be able to gather a lot of users. Basically, you'll be building a product with the expectation that at some point someone might come into this market and simply absorb you, buy your company for more than you invested in it. But I want to scale this story on a large scale. I want to reach big volumes. Naturally, the decision was made to use gamification as a source of traffic, as a marketing funnel, to set up this kind of system. So to put it in crypto terms, there's layer 1, right? And there's layer 2 to set up this kind of system, a game mechanic, gamification.
A layer for the average persona layer.
This will be a kind of gamified marketing funnel, which serves as a way to attract traffic for the business. And for the user, it's a form of gamification, a game fun, and a way to pursue their own personal interests. So that's how the idea for eSIM was born, to create a more mass market product with the main goal of gathering an audience. Because if you compare the product of an operator, telecom operator, roaming and the game. Right now, there are far more people interested in playing games than there are people who need a telecom operator. And accordingly, the idea is to create a game mechanic that is built as much as possible on an R2P economy, where users interact with each other, fully engage in the game, buy and resell things. And so on earning some in-game profit from certain assets, people get involved in the game, some just to spend time, others to gain some personal benefit. But the main goal for these people is to retain them through engagement. Yes, by involving them in a single environment and environment built around this kind of telecommunications team. And users pursue their own interests, but they are constantly present here, like a pot simmering on low, heat always being warmed up, bubbling, engaging daily, because they need to. And as soon as one of these users needs a connection because they've gone somewhere on vacation, they immediately think, oh, but I already used their E8 game, I played, and they have an operator too. And so they immediately start using it. And because we use gamification, yes, we create mechanics where a user who uses our real product business internet traffic will receive certain in-game boosts and perks. Naturally, this motivates them even more to think, oh, cool, I'm playing here. I have these preferences. And if I use the product even more, I'll get even more perks. Naturally, what will people do? Of course, they will go for it. Even purely from the perspective of motivation, the motivation of traffic.
Commitment, in terms of commitment to something bigger.
Well, now they have motivation. I'm doing something here right now and I'll get more. So they install the app and start using it. Maybe they don't need it at the moment, but still they've made contact. And then the next time they go somewhere on vacation, like to the sea in the summer or somewhere in the winter, right away they'll think, oh wait, how do I stay connected? How can you stay connected in the world today? Well, I always say there are three ways to stay connected. First, you can turn on roaming. You pay a lot. Second, you can buy a local SIM card.
It's a hassle.
It's uncomfortable, yeah. And third, there's the budget mode, where you run from one Wi-Fi spot to another.
From cafe to cafe.
You go into a cafe, and the first question you ask is, do you have Wi-Fi? That's the story, these budget modes. And in the end, he remembers, oh, there are SIM cards here. You just install one and that's it. This is the idea sort of as a way to generate a stream of people around the concept of their personal interest. And through that personal interest, bring them into the product, introduce them to it, and then gain our own entrepreneurial interest, a paying customer. And why is this interesting to us from a business perspective? Because we constantly get a steady flow of this kind of organic traffic. Since people come, they buy our product. If they have a gaming motivation, they make purchases on a regular basis. And if you look at the business track, you can see the acquisition of a user who comes back, who makes small purchases every month, little by little. The number of these users increases because the game is growing and the number of users is rising. And these are essentially the main key metrics that are important for the next stage when we're ready to merge and scale up to a more global level. At that point, we'll definitely need to attract some investments, venture capital. And with this kind of traction, it's easier to approach good, smart money and say, look, we have this kind of story, we have this kind of track record. We've already been on the market for a year or even 2 years. We have this kind of track record. It's steady. Our conversion rate is this. Our user acquisition cost is this much. Our lifetime value is this much. Our repeat purchase rate is like this, and so on. And of course, when smart money looks at this kind of track record, making an investment decision is much easier than when you see that you poured in amount X into traffic over 2 or 3 months, ran some campaigns, and then you look and your rate, the number dropped by say 80%. So you're like, well, yeah, we had advertising here, then we ran out of money and we dropped. Now give us some money and we'll bounce back, kind of thing. Well, those are different questions or a different valuation.
Super. If you don't mind, I'll also share a few numbers and some of my own observations, and we'll kind of sum this up and move on, right? Look, before I met you, I wasn't interested in games that I like, not even a little. I have a friend who absolutely loves games. He also works in real estate. And so I know marketing from the real estate perspective. I know that as long as you pour money into marketing, you get leads and you get sales. If you stop, everything comes to a halt. And when I started looking in this direction, I got hooked both by the topic itself and by EvoSim as a product. And by the game itself, I discovered a few very interesting facts for myself. First of all, I talked to ChatGPT. And the gaming industry market in 2024 is $187.7 billion. That's more than the budget of some countries. Next, there are 3.5 billion gamers in the world. That's almost half the population of the earth.
Now, I think that every person, I think anyone watching this podcast, well, has played some kind of game at least once in their life.
Yes.
Especially in this era of ours, our generation.
Yes, 100%. I myself was never really into games before, Well, maybe Monopoly or Mafia, just play those and that's it. But when I started looking into this area, I found out that even my adult friends who are 50 years old play Tanki, for example, or get into Counter-Strike. Another figure that surprised me is that 1.5 billion people out of these 3.5 billion gamers spend money inside games. I mean, seriously, where does all this money come from? It's actually quite a big deal.
You don't have to look far. Remember, 20 years ago, our parents saw our interest in computer games as something unserious. They'd say, you're wasting your time, you'll ruin your eyesight, and so on. It's better to go do something useful instead. But now you see these guys, 15 or 16 years old, playing in tournaments for different games and earning $1 million checks.
Yeah, that's esports. It's a whole separate field.
Their annual salaries are actually better and higher than those of athletes, seriously. So there's this 15-year-old kid, skinny, wearing a hoodie, playing some game, and he's making $1 million a year.
Yeah, Saudi Arabia, by the way, if I'm not mistaken, is really betting big on esports. They're hosting tournaments there, attracting people. For example, my friend Alex, by the way, that's his name too. He's flown there several times, and he supports it. He himself plays PUBG and FIFA. So when I heard about gaming, I looked at him. He's a well-off person, the owner of a major development company, and he plays games. I realized there's some kind of correlation in all of this. Then I started digging deeper and discovered that major brands like Starbucks, Nike, McDonald's, and Coca-Cola have long been using these gamification mechanics to keep their audience engaged with their brand.
Actually, games are a great thing, and they have always played an important role in many people's lives. Looking back now, I realize just how much they meant to me, especially during my childhood. When I was a kid, about 10, 12, or 13 years old, I spent countless hours playing games, and those experiences have left me with many fond memories that I still cherish today. Then, when I was about 13 or 14, I started playing online games, the kind where you move around on a server in a real-world environment. There are other users, you log in online, you have your own character, and you level up your character.
GTA?
Not GTA, something like that, but not exactly. As a kid, I was a big Lineage 2 player. I probably spent about 2 years of my life on that game. We really had a whole different world there. I had my own friends. We had our own meetups. We would get together. I'd come home from college, throw down my backpack, sit at the computer. Because our raid boss was about to spawn, everyone was waiting for me. And how would you build strategies? We had clans, alliances, there were hostile skirmishes, there were some unique bosses that gave unique items. They had a respawn period, like 3 days or 7 days. So a boss appears once every 3 days or once every 7 days. And its spawn time varies. It could be a day earlier or a day later. That means you have to devote 2 or even 3 days of your life because it could show up earlier or later. And so even before it appears, people are already gathering, taking the spot and basically defending it. There are all sorts of dramas. You sit there all night and in the morning you have to...
Like a sentry, remember?
You have to go to class. Like, guys, I need to go to class. When is it going to spawn? And so you leave. You just left and it shows up. Basically, everyone got wiped out. There were whole strategies involved, and there were all sorts of competitions. And you'd come up with a strategy. You could do it this way or that way. You'd engage in some kind of communication, build diplomacy, negotiate with other people, buy aces from others, look for something. So basically, you were creating some kind of logical chain of decisions. You were also developing yourself in the process. So even though you were playing a game, you still had interactions with this world, with others.
So it turns out that the game is life.
Kind of, yeah. A gaming network is built. It's about how you position yourself. And if you look at kids now, well, yes, their motor skills are developing. I remember my own fingers back when I used to play Counter-Strike as a kid. My fingers would move, I don't know, as fast as the wind.
Across the keyboard.
Exactly. And even now, somewhere, my wife has a younger brother. He still plays those games. I see them and now they're already on tablets. Like this, their fingers move like this while we use the keyboard. I can't imagine how you play on a tablet the way we used to play back then. I'm used to the keyboard and mouse, you really get into it. But now I look at his fingers, all of them on that tablet, and he moves around like that. For me, I look at it and it's just shocking. And
evolution.
And, back in the day, I remember playing online games and there were these older guys. I used to think, you're an older guy. Why are you playing? This is for kids. But there were some entrepreneurs playing. They would buy some in-game currency, spend money on donations and buy some gear from the hardcore gamers who played all the time. I used to think, what fools, they're really obsessed with this game. But now, honestly, I feel so nostalgic about that game. I haven't played in about 20 years.
But I can hear the passion in your voice when you talk about it.
Yeah, well, because it's kind of...
your life.
And I would love to, I don't have time to play, to level up, but I would gladly pay $1,000 right now. Pump me up to the max. I just want to run around in the evenings and then shoot a bit. That's pure joy. And what we're seeing now, these kinds of emotions that I have, they've just turned into a business. And entrepreneurs have started creating platforms where you can buy all sorts of items, skins, and it costs a fortune. I saw an analysis showing that the Counter-Strike skins have even outperformed Bitcoin in growth this year.
No way.
This year or maybe last year. Basically, the best performing asset in terms of growth is Counter-Strike skins. KZ2, fine. And of course, that's why there's so much money in esports and gamification. It just confirms what you said, that the market is valued at 172 billion. Yeah, absolutely. Because games are something everyone can understand.
Something interesting and engaging. That's awesome. Now, let's talk about the gameplay itself. Tell us a bit more about the game itself. Why is it that, as you said, now even more people are playing it than using mobile internet? Why do people get so involved? What's the point for them? Expand on that a little.
When we turn our attention to the topic of active users within our platform, it becomes clear that the numbers are quite significant, though it is unlikely that there are more active users than the total user base itself. This is primarily due to the fact that our platform has managed to attract and retain a remarkably large and diverse user base over time. The community consists of individuals from various backgrounds, each bringing their own unique perspectives and skills to the table. The size of this user base is not just a statistic, it is a testament to the platform's widespread appeal and the value it provides to its members. Many users have been with us since the early days, while others have joined more recently, drawn by the opportunities and features that the platform offers. The active users in particular are those who engage with the platform on a regular basis, contributing to its vibrancy and ongoing development. One of the most notable aspects of our active user community is the range of activities they participate in. For example, users have taken the initiative to occupy and claim virtual spaces within the platform, establishing their presence and creating hubs for interaction and collaboration. This process of occupying spaces is not merely symbolic. It often involves organizing events, setting up meeting points, and fostering a sense of belonging among participants. In addition to occupying spaces, users are also deeply involved in building and constructing various structures and features within the platform. This can include anything from designing and assembling virtual buildings to creating intricate landscapes to developing new tools and resources that benefit the wider community. The act of building is both a creative and collaborative endeavor, requiring users to work together, share ideas, and solve problems as a team. Another key activity among our active users is the capturing of cell towers. In the context of our platform, capturing a cell tower typically refers to gaining control over a specific area or resource, often through strategic planning and coordinated efforts. This activity adds an element of competition and excitement as users vie for control and strive to outmaneuver one another. It also encourages teamwork and communication, as groups of users must coordinate their actions to achieve their goals. Constructing things in a broader sense encompasses all the ways in which users contribute to the ongoing evolution of the platform. Whether it's building new features, developing content, or enhancing existing systems, our active users play a crucial role in shaping the direction and future of the platform. Their creativity, dedication, and enthusiasm are what drive the platform forward, ensuring that it remains dynamic and engaging for everyone involved. In summary, while the number of active users may not exceed the total user base, the impact of their activities is profound. Through occupying spaces, building and constructing new features, capturing cell towers, and contributing in countless other ways, our active users help to create a vibrant, ever-evolving community that continues to grow and thrive.
So in the areas where they live, they started kind of...
Yeah, capturing towers, building, capturing them. And these towers started to connect to form a coverage network. And accordingly, people began to recreate decentralized communication. In fact, each person becomes a kind of node in this decentralized communication network. And the more they build it out, the greater the coverage they get and the more they can communicate with this world. Naturally, the world shifted from centralized communication to decentralized communication, though there are still remnants of corporations that retain some control, but in particular, in different countries around the world, people are setting up their own towers and getting their own connections. That's kind of the lore. And further, as of today, objectively speaking, we've only introduced the first role, which you could say is a more passive role, where a person simply buys towers, sets up their own network, and generates some internal in-game income. And this phase, in fact, we now call the Genesis phase. It's the phase where the first background is created, the initial infrastructure, so to speak. A state is being built, or rather some kind of platform is being constructed. Let's put it simpler, platform that starts providing services. And then as users interact with each other, resell and buy, the platform will earn revenue. It's the same story right now. We are creating Genesis. At this stage, users are buying in-game assets from the game. This is a temporary phase, and they install these towers, build their own networks, and can occupy different regions since they have a real-world map, exactly like Google Maps. But instead of businesses or restaurants being marked, there are a bunch of towers scattered around, and you choose towers for yourself. There are 5 types of towers: 1G, 2G, 3G, 4G, and 5G. Accordingly, the more powerful the tower, the greater its coverage, the more power it has, and the more opportunities it gives you. And soon, I think, as far as I know, by the time this podcast is released, it will already be available. There will be a mechanic for active players. We will introduce free-to-play mechanics where users can start doing something without having to buy anything in the game. An active player mechanic will appear. Each user in the game will have their own drone, an AI drone, which only works when connected to the towers. The towers are its power, its coverage area, where it can...
Like a base.
Yes, exactly, where it can fly. So it can fly beyond the tower signal because it's controlled, it needs radio management. And accordingly, the drone can go out on these raid missions. Each user will have a certain number of raid missions. The more tower power you have, right? The more towers you have, or the stronger the type of towers you have, the more missions you'll get per day to fly out and find something. Naturally, the drone that goes out on this raid mission can find various artifacts or items. The most basic thing he can find is someone else's tower. If he finds another person's tower, the user will be given the option to raid that tower. In other words, the person can attack the tower and take its internal daily income, the in-game earnings.
Wow.
Yes, well, like in any game, every mechanic has a counterbalance. So it's a balance. You can defend your own towers, and there will be different ways to protect them and so on. And again, only abandoned towers will be vulnerable to raids. There are players who, for example, received drops. They have towers, but let's say they just lost interest in the game, or maybe they don't have time. For example, I personally have 2 accounts. I often log in, forget to claim, and it just expires on me. And to prevent that from happening, that's exactly why this mechanic exists. So basically, every step, every element we're launching now was thought out in advance. So first there was the Genesis phase, right? So that these towers would appear. And there was a drop of towers for the first early users who participated. There are people who are active and claim their in-game earnings. There are users who just forgot about it and don't do it. And there are those who forget, like me. And so that this doesn't go to waste, I've always been an advocate for somehow transforming any surplus.
To use it?
Yes, why just transfer it? And this mechanic allows more active people to earn some farming income from those who are more passive or who have simply given up. And instead of it just burning out economically, people can raid these abandoned towers so the profit doesn't disappear. Someone raids it, the profit goes to them, and the tower starts accumulating again after 24 hours. If no one collects it again, then someone else can come and raid it. And for active users, this introduces a mechanic where they can basically do nothing. It's free. They don't have to buy anything. They just have few of these raid missions with some limitations, and they can earn some profit from these towers. They can also find some in-game artifacts like other downed drones, which they can later restore.
So you'll be able to shoot down drones, right?
Well, there will be a lot of mechanics. Drones can go much, much further ahead as well. There will be various PvP missions. In PvP missions, if you specifically go for PvP, there's a certain risk you might lose your drone, but that's optional. If you want fun, if you want dopamine action, to fight someone somewhere, then there's a very small chance that your drone could be damaged, lost, and so on.
Well, yeah, so there would be adrenaline, right?
Yeah, but that's more of a future thing. It's not happening right now. The current drones that they'll be finding, basically all the drones are corporate drones from before. It's just that they lost their signal, became unclaimed, and people started capturing them, reprogramming them, and using them. There are drones that simply crashed at the moment when the connection was lost. And people find these drones, let's imagine they bring them back to their base, restore them in a workshop, and then they can either use them themselves or sell them to another user who wants, say, to own a drone and maybe get some more interesting modified ones. Naturally, users will be mining various resources. There will be many different resources, different modules, some various buffs, some game elements, boosters, and so on. And they can either use them for their own personal purposes, or they can simply sell them to other users on the P2P market. But who are they going to sell to? There always has to be balance in the game. That is, if there is one side, there must be another side. And in any game, there are different kinds of people. Some people are interested in one type of mechanic, others are interested in another. Some want to spend more time, while others want to spend less time. And say if you are the owner of a tower and you have a pain point, you need to log in once a day to claim the profit from your towers. And you're like, damn, I don't want to log in every day. I'm just too lazy. I'm so lazy that I just don't want to. I want to log in once a week. And you have the option. You can buy a kind of module that will claim the income for you, right? Or, for example, protect your tower for you. And instead of buying this from the company, we want to make it so that one need is met by another opportunity.
So basically like a marketplace, right?
Of course. I mean, it's obvious.
In game?
The first of the initial mechanics that we launch, of course, come from us, from sales, from the game itself. But purely in order to kickstart the economy, yes, to launch the market, create liquidity, create price action, so that people understand what things cost, what development options they have, and so on. And then we let this market operate completely freely so that the market regulates itself. In other words, we set the trend, we set the price trend, and then people regulate it themselves. If, for example, the initial conditions are such that a person doesn't want to log in every day and wants some kind of autoclaimer, they can buy it from us. But later, when we introduce the next mechanic, people will be able to find these autoclaimers themselves, like
resell them.
Just sell them to other people. So if someone finds one for free, they can use it themselves. But if they don't need it, they can put it up on the marketplace.
And does he find them with the help of this drone?
With the drone, yes. But someone else bought it, someone who needed it. So basically, they're just selling their time to someone who has money. And this person who just bought assets for their own personal gain to farm some profit, well, they simply stocked up on this, that, and the other. That's it. They set everything up for automation and don't worry about it. And he bought from people who, on the contrary, do this activity. And so every step that happens from here on out will ultimately move toward a fully P2P model, because our idea is to create our own internal economy where the user is engaged in the game, the gameplay is interesting to them, and they can get some kind of benefit for themselves, right? Somewhere he can farm profit if he wants, or if he wants emotions, he can fight, do raids. Engage in PvP, there will be things like clan raids, alliance raids. Basically, this will develop as much as possible into a game model where there is its own market and assets. Assets have value, but that value will be determined by the market. That is, at a certain point, we will completely cut off our own ability to sell directly so that people simply buy from each other. If new users want to participate in some mechanic and need a certain in-game item, they will go and buy it from the market, not from us. And we will simply earn through a commission model. So with every transaction, if you sell a tower to someone, we get a commission. If you sell a drone, we get a commission. If you sell some game models, we get a commission. In other words, we simply take a commission from all mechanics, generating our own treasury. We use this treasury to maintain liquidity and so on. Our motivation is that if in the global mechanics we have a clear and truly transparent token economy, where the user actually buys this token in order to purchase some internal item.
Hold on, now we're about to touch on crypto. Let me sum up about the game for myself. So based on what I heard, I noticed two really cool aspects. The first aspect is that this is a real game. It's actually something interesting, not just some clicker like that hamster one I remember, or something like that. This is a real game with huge. As you're telling me about it, I'm genuinely interested. I already want that drone. I want to fly around, find something. I'm already getting excited. That's the first thing. And the second thing I realized is that essentially you're building something like an exchange, a crypto exchange, where there are some tokens. These are the in-game assets and people trade with each other. And then in the future, like an exchange, you earn from transaction fees.
Well, maybe not an exchange, more like a kind of marketplace.
Yes, but that's just a metaphor. I mean, it's not really a comparison.
It's a platform where the user...
Just to make it clear.
The user has some kind of internal communication. They interact with each other. And we basically created the infrastructure.
Okay, now I have a question. How does this relate to EvoSim? So what's your interest in this? I mean, you came up with a game and maybe people get some in-game profit, excitement, or interest. It's really cool because their pains and needs are actually being met. But how is this going to meet the needs of EvoSim users? Tell me.
Well, it's simple. It's what I was leading up to earlier. Our task is to create such a catalog where people are immersed in their own environment, their own economy, their own world within their game. For example, I used to play games. I got really immersed in my own world. We had our own thing going on. We would buy and resell things, and you could even cash out for real money. Like you'd transfer something to someone in the game and they'd send you money to your card. There were such movements too. We had our own kitchen. And here is the same kind of ecosystem. People play and everyone gets something out of it. And as a product, as a company, at a certain stage with the audience we've gathered, our goal is to bring the game to 1 million users and offer an option. Guys, look, if you use our product, the connection
core product,
internet, so we'll give you boosts, for example, for this, for that, and so on. You'll be able to earn more in-game currency with your gaming assets. Or you'll get some boosters, some unique skins, and other special features. In other words, we'll be giving you in-game perks that might be valuable to you. And in return, we offer you connectivity.
So basically, it's incentivized traffic to the main product, which people are already using anyway.
That's right. It's incentivized traffic. But with any incentivized traffic, there's always a portion of the traffic that is targeted because...
It works like any funnel. 100 go in, 10 come out.
Of course, we got people. A lot of people will come purely for their own material, what do you call it? To abuse the project, get something out of it. Like, okay, I'll buy a plan for $10, get some in-game asset or some kind of boost. Is that cool? It is cool. And obviously he'll come for his own benefit. And when he sees that, if he keeps using it, he gets some kind of boost. He'll keep using it all the time. But among all these people, even those who did it purely out of self-interest, well, most of them will want to go on vacation at least once a year. And at that very moment, when he decides to buy a ticket, and after arriving in that country, he immediately thinks, okay, I need a connection with the SIM and to try out that SIM as well.
Listen, that's genius.
And he's like, but there's already a product. I've even paid for it already. And then you just go ahead, install it, and you're already our client. And then what happens? You try it out. If you've tried it once, the same thing happens as it did with me, with you, and with other people. You're like, it turns out.
You've experienced it firsthand.
It was that easy. And I used to struggle with all this all the time. That's it. The person is now a client.
You know what I just realized? I even realized that, for example, when I play a game and I like it, in the game I get to fulfill my needs, whether they're gaming needs or, say, profit-related ones. I make purchases to boost my gameplay online, and then at some point, well, obviously I'll most likely buy in the country where I'm located. And at some point I'll simply be faced with a choice. For example, I already have internet access that I've purchased, which I need for the game. So why should I pay again for my own internet?
Well, there's a certain logic to that too.
And that's also all...
There will be users like that too, depending on their level of engagement in the game, what kind of interest they have and how much they've developed their empires, right? How much profit they're farming in the game. Yeah, it all depends on how beneficial it will be for them to use it. So if he realizes that he's a really active, powerful player and the booster we're offering can significantly increase his in-game earnings, then it's much more worthwhile for him. He thinks, well, I spent $10, but damn, it'll farm me so many assets here, and then I'll sell them to other players on P2P, basically making up for it with a profit. Obviously, he's going to use it then.
Listen, I really like that logic.
He might even use it instead of his local phone, and basically he'd have free connectivity.
Yeah, that's cool. Now let's...
And for us, that's traction that just keeps dripping in drop by drop, and the company keeps growing.
Awesome. Now let's draw a parallel with crypto. So how is all of this connected to cryptocurrency? Tell me a bit about the token. How does it all work?
Well, it's like another layer. Yeah. Another one.
Layer?
Yes, of the economy. You need to keep the economy moving somehow. It's the same problem as with games in the past. A user couldn't interact with another user with much trust, I've had situations like that where we would send items to another account and the person, well, that's it.
Blocked you.
Yeah. And basically that's it. And there wasn't any kind of currency unit from the product from the game because that would have been a violation.
You mean in-game currency?
Well, it kind of had value that you could go and drop somewhere on a platform, exchange it, right? There wasn't anything like that because...
So a guarantor then?
Not exactly a guarantor. There's liquid currency, which you exchange in the game. And then when you trade, you get this currency and basically you can go and exchange it on the market. For example, let's take Lineage, the game I used to play. They had a coin called Adena, and that's the in-game currency, basically coins. And if they were liquid, just imagine if they were traded somewhere on the market, on an exchange, on a CEX or DEX, and I could just sell them, there was a trade. Like he gives me Adena and I give him an item. Like he sees that it's the right item. I see the amount of Adena, like confirm. That's it. A P2P trade has taken place. And then I take this Adena, withdraw it from the game, convert it, say, into fiat. So in a way, I'm protected by the game. But back then, no one even thought, that you could make money from this.
There were these coins inside the game.
On the contrary, games actually try to prevent this. Game admins used to try to ban these kinds of things. But now we see fully developed marketplaces. There are exchanges for various items, game assets, where people resell to each other. So there is some kind of unit of account that is recognized and has liquidity. In fact, in the gaming model, we also need a certain kind of liquid instrument that allows a person to exchange one asset for others, for something they can actually touch and then back into assets. But it needs to be backed by some liquidity and protected so that people aren't scammed. Naturally, in reality, tokenization, right? It solves this issue. So we have a token economy. It's important to understand that we're building a community project, a community for the community, a game for the players. We're not interested in bringing in anyone else like investors. We don't have any fundraisers, investors, or funds. For me personally, I actually think that having funds on board is a red flag because funds just cash out on you and that's it. If we look at all the projects that have launched over the past 3 years with results of 20, 30, 10, $5 billion, the chart just goes like this. They cash out on you, create a media buzz, people come in and start buying, believing it will keep growing, and then they cash out. They made their money. They kept it going for a while longer. Again, the same money you gave them was thrown back into the media space. And so it goes cash out, cash out, cash out, basically.
They're fleecing people.
Yeah, well, an investor comes in with the goal of making money. He doesn't come in to give his money so that someone else can make even more.
Right. There are no funds, no investors at all.
We didn't have any rounds like seed, A rounds, private, publics, KOLs, no tokens, nothing was distributed. We started the game from day one, openly and transparently. We set up the liquidity pool. So the company invested in the launch of the game in the initial liquidity, right? In fact, it was $1 million, right? Part of it was in tokens, part in TON, since we're on the TON blockchain. The initial liquidity pool was $1 million. So the game had just started. 0 players, no one was there. There were no obligations to anyone. The company invested $1 million of its own money into the future of this game. Well, $500,000.
Basically, the marketing budget was essentially spent on the game.
In fact, it's kind of a budget that was invested in advance so that users who come in know that there's already liquidity available ahead of time. In other words, it's not created by selling something like some assets. We sold some assets and that's the liquidity. No, the liquidity was already created from day one many times over, much more than what users spend on buying these in-game assets. And people understand that, okay, there's a transparent liquidity pool on the blockchain. Everything is on chain. You can look up all the transactions. On the first day, 50% of the supply, together with $500,000 in TON, was added to liquidity. A trading pair was created. You can check everything on chain. And the other 50% of the tokens are allocated as follows. 10% is specifically set aside for team incentives, also known as team tokens. Additionally, 10% of the total supply is securely locked for a period of 1 year with a linear vesting schedule that continues for another 4 months. So in fact, as a team, we will receive the last token in 3 years. Next, 10% is allocated for marketing, which also has linear unlocking over 1.5 years, and 30% of the supply are ecosystem tokens. These are exactly the tokens that are intended to reward the community, to pay them various in-game bonuses and in-game earnings.
Within the game?
Well, there are in-game assets. They generate some kind of internal in-game income, and to cover the liquidity, you need some tokens. There are tokens in the tokenomics that are already backed in advance by our own money, which we invested into liquidity. And the person who is farming in-game assets isn't selling us a game token, isn't selling us someone else's token, right? He can already exchange it.
Already for a liquid currency.
Yes, he doesn't have to wait for someone to come and add liquidity. He already has liquidity up front. It has more than enough liquidity. So that's the idea, to create a market right from the start. And then new users who want to participate in this whole mechanism come in and buy tokens, not from the project, but from us. We don't sell any tokens. We don't attract any investments and so on. A person goes to the market where tokens are available to everyone and buys from the liquidity pool. There is a government eSIM token. This eSIM token is purchased, loaded into the game, and then exchanged for the internal game token for the in-game currency Evo. And with this Evo, the user starts interacting with the economy, buying towers, buying drones, various game assets, buying from other users. Right now, they can still buy from the company. This is while the Genesis phase is ongoing. As soon as we finish it, they will start reselling all these assets to each other and won't be buying anything from us. And we'll start generating a commission in Evo from all these transactions, essentially earning additional profit as a product. That's basically the idea. So all the liquidity that exists is in the market. All users who come in, they all see where they are buying tokens, all the transactions, all the company wallet transactions. It's all open. Everyone can see everything. Well, my idea is to create maximum transparency so that, not even a mosquito could slip through.
Trust, confidence.
I just want to make sure that no one can say something like, you guys are selling some special tokens on the side. There's nothing like that. We just got listed from day one, no pre-sale, nothing.
Let's put it this way. Look, here's how it is. So there's the Ton blockchain, there's the Ton cryptocurrency. The entire ecosystem is built on the liquidity of this coin, which no one has any doubts about. Then there's the eSIM token, which has an issuance of 50
million.
50 million. Small issue for the market.
Well, issuance is just...
Yeah, how is all of this unlocked, distributed, as you mentioned? There's a document, I've seen it. That's true. There's also the in-game token Evo.
That's the in-game currency.
Yes. All right. Now, please tell me how this whole system can protect the game from a very common problem in the market where a token is supposedly issued inside the game, but then everyone just dumps it on the market. And as a result, the price crashes. And it looks like you've earned something, but in reality, when you try to cash out to fiat, you end up in the red.
That's also another mechanic, in fact, in this game. I don't know, maybe I'm building a utopia here. I want everything to be perfect. But there's another mechanic and another best practice, basically. I'm building something that addresses the pain points found in projects that are tied to tokens. A person buys a token with another token, buys some in-game asset that's priced in these tokens, right? And they're happy when the token goes up because it's rising, but then when it falls, they're not happy. But in our case, the eSIM token is an external token, right? Which is subject to market forces. People buy and sell it. And as a result, they create a price chart. They exchange it for the in-game currency. The in-game currency has a fixed value. It's not volatile. So the token is simply a tool for purchasing this currency.
What's the value?
In the game, it's pegged to, say, 10 cents. You could put it that way. You just use the eSIM to buy this in-game currency, to exchange it for the currency. The in-game currency is basically your unit of account within the economy. You play with it, you spend it on your various interests. And what's the idea here? That the initial liquidity at the genesis stage, when we sell assets ourselves, because assets have to come from somewhere, right?
Of course.
So someone has to buy them, somehow they have to appear. We can't just give them away either, because how would we even do that?
Well, that would just lead to everything losing its value.
A person needs to feel some kind of attachment to it all. And to make them feel at ease, they have initial liquidity. They understand, okay, there's plenty. So there's no problem with that. And everyone can see how the liquidity is growing, falling, and so on. Then the person makes a purchase. So what is our task? To push, to engage the audience as much as possible, to make this game go viral so that more and more users join. Naturally, they go to the market, buy the token, bring it into the game, exchange it for the in-game token. And accordingly, at a certain stage, once we have distributed a sufficient amount of the initial assets, we will simply stop selling from the primary market. In other words, we will stop creating new emissions, additional emissions of these assets, and we'll just leave the option for peer-to-peer sales. So, for example, you bought a tower, and if a new user wants to join and participate in the game, he can only buy it from you, he can't buy it from us. In fact, he backs the value of your tower with his own asset. In other words, he bought your car from you, bought everything. That's
like Bitcoin. People buy from each other, not from the exchange, but directly from one another.
Yes. Accordingly, he's already backing your value with his own asset, which he added to the game. And instead of leaving the project, it goes directly peer-to-peer. So the liquidity remains, it just gets redistributed among the users. And accordingly, all the new game mechanics, the active mechanics, are built on the principle that everything a user spends is distributed among people in this sort of, you could say, gambling-like element. Sometimes you might succeed, sometimes you might fail. If someone fails, someone else succeeds, right? Naturally, in the moment, you'll experience ups and downs. Sometimes you'll multiply your internal tokens. Other times your tokens will be burned. But over the long run, you end up profiting because it's basically a matter of large numbers. And accordingly, with this model, as a project, we don't issue any new tokens. People are simply redistributing the assets they've accumulated among themselves. If we look at the activity of active drones and so on, all the resources you extract, you also sell to other people. They're not buying from the project. You end up with other people who then use and burn those resources. And this game, farming from above, which exists, will over time be transferred and shifted so that all these commission models will generate this pool reward. That is, all the commissions we generate will go into the pool reward. This pool reward will be distributed among a limited number of top players in the game. So it's not just our mission where we have to pay extra out of our own pocket, but rather, let's say, for example, there was, say, 1 million coins. They simply keep moving between users within the game models, going up and down, being resold. But with each transaction, we take a commission 2, 3, 5%, and the in-game money circulates, the internal currency, and the commission accumulates. This commission will go to the owners of the towers as farming income. So in fact, it's not generated out of thin air, but from the commission model that is generated. And the initial activity that they are now farming from the towers, we've already provided from day one. It won't be like assets will be endlessly purchased from us there. Now, at a certain stage, when we reach a specific number of people according to our development roadmap, based on our unit economics, we will simply start releasing fewer and fewer of these towers onto the market. And new users who join will only be able to buy from other users. Our idea is that at the final stage right now, it's like the embryonic stage, right? Then there's, so to speak, the market establishment stage. And after that, the maturity stage. At the maturity stage, we will completely stop selling any assets from the game, and all new users will only be able to buy from each other. At that point, we will fully switch to a commission-based model and will earn only from commissions. For example, let's take a platform. What are the latest trends right now? Meme coins, right? In meme coins, there's PumpFun on Solana. What did PumpFun do? Brilliant. They simply play on people's greed and dopamine. They created a platform where people create their own tokens. They take a commission for these tokens and other people buy the tokens. For what purpose? For what purpose do people buy the tokens?
To make money.
To make money. And they understand that there's a risk that if they buy the token now, it might drop. But they know that, well, there's a chance to make 100 times their money, right? So they buy. What happens when they buy? They generate a commission. And PumpFun is simply a platform that introduced this technology, and people are basically trading with each other, right? Buying from one another, reselling, constantly moving these tokens back and forth, and generating commissions for Solana and PumpFun. That's why we saw last year, for example, just astronomical amounts there. PumpFun moved into the revenue rankings of top blockchains with hundreds of millions of dollars in commissions generated. But really, it's just the same money circulating from person to person while the commission gets collected.
Move back forth.
Yes, just like an exchange. And how does it work on an exchange? There are users, they top up their deposits, buy and resell Bitcoin, Ethereum, trade among themselves. What does the exchange do with every transaction? It takes a commission. Well, if we don't take into account futures, liquidations, and so on, it's just buy and sell, commission after commission. And with volume, the more there is, the more they make astronomical amounts of money. We can see the market capitalizations of exchanges, the owners of these exchanges, and how loaded those guys are. So the idea is exactly the same, to create an economy. Yes, at some stage, it's mission driven by the project, but it's secured in advance. Anyone can come and check this. It's as transparent as can be. It's not like we're hiding anything. These are obvious things. And then it will fully transition to a P2P model. And our task is to make sure that from the product side, we create the best possible user experience here, gaming experience that's fun, engaging, offers personal benefits, and features different roles in the game, passive roles, active roles. Basically, you can do whatever you want. And so that people can build their own internal economy while we, as the platform, generate our commission, which of course we partially redistribute back and partially used for our own liquidity. And the main goal of this whole story is to eventually convert this user into EY products.
Super. I think this could very well be the jam of 2025. Yes, it's just jam ham.
Yeah, a jam.
Ham. And I want to thank you for this podcast. I just caught a dozen insights. So the essence, the depth became even clearer to me. Even though we've talked before, it was in this conversation that I realized just how deeply you think, how broad your strategic vision really is, you know? It's not just about pumping some meme coin right now in the moment, like you said. This is actually a really cool story. It addresses people's pain points. It aligns with their interests. So on one hand, it addresses pain points. And today we've uncovered several important pressing ones and everyday pain points as well. And it also meets people's need to be engaged in something, because artificial intelligence really is advancing. People have less and less to actually do, except for endlessly scrolling through their feeds, wasting their time, burning out their dopamine, basically just throwing it all away, right? But here, you can actually be engaged in something, you can get gaming rewards, a certain sense of satisfaction, and do what we love to do as kids, right? Just playing and enjoying yourself, that's it. So once again, thank you. Let's mark this point today. Today is May 27, 2025. And I'd like to suggest that we meet again here in about 3 or 4 months, for example, to sum up some results. Yes, meaning what worked out, what didn't. We'll reflect on it, see how many players there are by then, how much it has developed. I'm really interested to watch how this unfolds.
Yes, of course, with pleasure. Me too. I'm more about practice. I don't like being too wordy, saying we'll do this and that. Let's set a 3 or 4 month period for results. And then in a future podcast, we'll rewind to the past, compare what was said to what was actually done. That would be a great metric. That's how I always track myself. I look at the goals I set for myself and how well I achieved them. It works great, keeps me constantly focused, and teaches me to be accountable for my words and actions.
Awesome. By the way, I have a suggestion. What if we offer something to our viewers who watch this podcast all the way to the end? Not everyone will, of course. A contest, for example. Whoever writes the best comment about the game, about what they understood from it, their insights under this podcast video, you could personally pick, say, the 10 best comments and give them a gift, like some in-game assets. How do you like this idea? Friends, write in the comments how you felt about the information you just heard, your personal impressions. No need for flattery or harsh criticism. Just share how you felt, what you understood for yourself. And Alexey will personally read all these comments and pick the 10 best ones. Also, like the comments that you enjoyed, this will help with the ranking and promotion of this video. And we'll find you through YouTube and definitely give out these gifts. Thank you for the podcast.
Thank you, Kolya.
It was a pleasure talking.
Likewise.
Guys, stay in touch, play and enjoy life. Bye.